Understanding the state of the nation and how a few policies have affected Nigeria as the average Nigerian knew it to be, right? May I request that you speak to the average Nigerian who is unsure of what next the government will bring in place, because I understand that there are short-term benefits of these things. Yes, it may be hard right now, but there are necessary changes. So could you kindly speak to the average Nigerian who is unsure, but still is hopeful about Nigeria?
So even though the crisis in Nigeria has been a major distraction for our country and for the country's leadership, there's really no doubt. Anyone who has the privilege of observing President Tinubu up close will tell you that there is nothing more pressing on his mind from morning to night than the struggles and pains, economic pains, confronting Nigerians across this country. All segments of the society have been affected by the removal of the fuel subsidy on one hand and by the unification of foreign exchange rates on the other hand, and what that has meant in terms of the devaluation of the currency, what that has meant for rising, the stagnation of wages, along with rising food and energy costs. So we know exactly what Nigerians are going through. And that is why Mr. President has been very, very communicative, really speaking directly to Nigerians at a frequency that Nigerians really aren't used to from a president, to really communicate to them on a real-time, updated basis on those immediate, urgent emergency measures that he's putting in place to provide some succor. So on the one hand, yes, Mr. President has announced of course, the release of 200,000 metric tons of grains from the Strategic Grain Reserve to oversupply our markets with a view to crashing the cost of food in the country. Additionally, directing the release of 225,000 metric tons of fertilizers, seedlings, and other agricultural supplements for our farmers to massively bolster production nationwide, to not only replace what was taken out of the reserve, but also to further oversupply our markets, to further reduce the cost of food in the country. When it comes to the MSMEs across our dear country that are now facing decisions about whether or not they need to start laying off people just to survive, especially the enterprise ownership around the country, we are putting in place an immediate delivery of over about 175 billion naira worth of a combination of grants and single-digit interest rate loans repayable over a 4 to 5 year term to ensure that not only we can stop the job losses that would occur if we do not intervene, but that hopefully our MSMEs can even expand their operations a bit with the new financial breathing space they're going to be receiving from the federal government in short order. In addition to that, we are at a very advanced stage of the process of national minimum wage review. I did cite wage stagnation as one of those pressure points on the president at the moment. He knows that, if you have the same wage that you had 4 or 5 years ago, and prices are going up across the board, that it's likely that you and your family are going to be in a lot of pain right now, which is why he has been able to strike an agreement with the state governors across the Federation to support financially a new minimum wage. Obviously, the funds saved from the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy allows the state governors to be able to sponsor that effectively without having to resort to more borrowing. So we're on the right course with that. We believe that Nigerians should expect I don't want to preempt the work of the National Minimum Wage Review Committee, but in view of the pain in the country, I do think it's safe to say that we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of at least a doubling of the national minimum wage, and hopefully even a little bit more than that. So there is succor coming. We are pleading with our people to please be patient with Mr. President. He will continue to to engage with Nigerians directly as developments unfold. But he is with them, and he is also ensuring that, in as much as we deal with food, as much as we deal with MSME bailouts, as much as we deal with stagnant wages, he's also dealing very aggressively with the energy problem. How we're going to drastically reduce energy prices in the weeks and months ahead by striking a deal through the NNPCL with NIPCO that would see to the establishment of 56 new CNG filling stations across all states of the Federation over the course of the next 18 months, with the first 21 being established over the next 8 months, and the next 35 in phase 2 being established over the next 12 months after that, so approximately 18 months. What that does for us, and why that's important to the current situation, is that CNG, on average, depending on market conditions, runs between 175 naira per litre to 250 naira per litre, as against PMS that's running at an average of between 617 naira per litre and 700 naira per litre, depending on where you are in the country. So we have the immediate term moves, we have the short term moves, we have the medium term moves, and we're pleading with Nigerians to please be patient with us. We know exactly what you're facing, and we're doing everything. Anybody who is watching this program can verify and fact check what I'm about to say. Go and see what FAC allocated to the states and local governments in the month of April 2023. That's a month before Mr. President took office. It was somewhere in the realm of about 600 and something billion naira, right? In the month of May, the month of the inauguration, FAC allocated approximately 700 and something billion, just a marginal increase over April. Then when Mr. President took office, immediately removed the subsidy, as you recall. So from June 1 to the end of June, there was no subsidy that was being paid and all of that, meaning that you have all of that savings. So it was not a miracle that at the end of June, early July, they announced that FAC was releasing to the states, potentially, at least the number that FAC was allocated, was 1.95 trillion naira. That is a month-on-month surplus of 1.2 trillion approximately over the previous month because of the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, what did we do with this 1.9 trillion is what is important now. First of all, the states that had been averaging approximately between 500 and 600 billion over the course of the last few years, all of a sudden get a windfall of about 900 billion. Right, about 200 or 300 billion over the previous month. Out of the 1.9 trillion, we gave them about 900 and something billion. Now, what that allows them to do is, first of all, the new minimum wage that they've agreed that they're agreeing to escalate with Mr. President. They are now in a financial position to be able to pay that because they now have more money as a result of the higher allocation that they have received in June. And we expect July to be somewhere in the same ballpark moving forward. Now, the other part of the money, Mr. President had directed that approximately nearly 800 billion would be set aside in a dedicated savings account. Not savings just to have money sitting idle, but to provide an increment to our reserves and also for investment, which is why the president said, look, if we make the mistake that previous governments in this country have made, as an accountant, he understands these things. He said, if we make the mistake of taking the 1.9 trillion and throwing all of it into the economy at once, because maybe out of excitement or to show that we're doing so well, what we're going to end up doing by mistake is that we're going to worsen inflation concerns in the country. We'll overheat the economy. Inflation will get worse. And as a result of inflation getting worse, the central bank will now in turn have to respond by increasing interest rates, which obviously has its impact on investment and on the books of businesses and individuals across the country. So he said, we're not going to overheat the economy. We're going to be careful and we're going to perform surgery on this. So what he now did was he said, we're going to put 800 billion in this savings account, essentially. Part of it will be used to bolster our reserves. Part of it will be set aside for a program that Mr. President established just last month, which was the Infrastructure Support for States program, meaning that states will now be able to come to this account effectively and apply for a counterpart fund for infrastructure projects that's mutually agreed upon between the federal administration and their states for basic education, basic healthcare, railroads, roads, ports, power plants, and the like,
to ensure that we immediately provide an injection of funds to create jobs on the construction sites, have that money trickle down into the informal economy with vendors supplying cement, supplying sand, supplying glass and the like. That's all part of this packet of money that has now been set aside. The rest is now going to statutory transfers to fund, institutions like, the NDDC and many other institutions like the Human Rights Commission and others that are based on statutory transfer funding. So that is what we're doing. And we're going to ensure that Nigerians benefit from all aspects of the savings that we've accrued.